This is the package I got sent by LC Boards. I already opened this up because I just forgot what it actually was. This is a new product by LC Boards, and it's a miniature mountain bike. I'm not being paid to say anything about this. They did send this out to me for free, which I'm very grateful for. Is this even a review? I don't know. I don't even know what I'm doing. This is completely 3D printed, which looks insane. You cannot really tell this is 3D printed until you look at it like really close. This bike comes in at just $22, which I think is a really good price. There's a lot of like Chinese brands that make finger bikes that just kind of look a little out of place. But I would say they did a pretty good job with this. The entire bike is 3D printed. There are a couple like metal screws in a couple spots. And the wheels actually have bearings, which I was not expecting at all. It's a little hard to fully see, but you can see there is a bearing sitting there. The entire print is one filament, but then they switched for like a soft filament for the rubber. The whole bike is pretty rigid, but then the wheels have like a soft kind of squishy feel. It's still a little bit slidey, but it has a lot more grip than if it was printed with hard plastic. I myself have never been a huge fan of finger bikes, mainly just because it doesn't take as much skill as like fingerboarding. If you just hold the bike, you can still do tricks just floating in the air. So it's definitely different than fingerboarding. You don't really need to have like precise timing with stuff. That's a little beside the point, because this still looks amazing. I think it would be cool to try and film this in like a somewhat realistic way though. After using this for a couple of hours, I have so much more that I have to say about it. The first thought is that you just have to be gentle when using this. Partway through filming, I actually snapped off the fork, and I was wondering because they did include a second fork, so I was thinking it was probably fragile. The fix was really easy, but it's definitely something to keep in mind. If they could add a metal piece to the fork as a steer tube, that would make it so much stronger. Naturally, there's a little bit of flex there, and all it takes is hitting some sort of rock and this just snaps apart. Everyone has a different way of holding these, but something I did notice is the edges of these kind of are sharp when you're holding it for a long time. Part of this was because I was outside in the cold and your hands kind of hurt a little more when they're cold, but you can definitely still see the edges are still a bit sharp. Another thing, I think the bars could be a little bit longer. I know if they were like too wide, it would feel like really off, but I feel like you could still have this to scale and have it still feel pretty good. These bars are definitely a little short for the look of the bike. I would not really even notice if the bars were a little longer, and it would look a lot better as well. The fork does have a pretty tight fit in the frame, so the bars actually don't turn very well. I was trying really hard to get some tail whips happening, but it's just way too stiff to actually like fully get it around. I'm not trying to complain on this bike, and still for $22, it's still a good deal, but there are definitely things that could be a lot better. You basically feel every single bump with this, and it is a full suspension bike, but this is completely solid parts, so there's nothing that actually moves. It would be unreal to have some actual working shocks in the future, and that would actually improve the performance like a lot. I have a list of upgrades that would easily make this the best finger bike ever. First of all, metal steer tube on the fork. This would allow you to have bearings in the headset as well. And I don't think that's ever been done on a finger bike. Shocks on the bike, even a front shock would be better. I don't know what you would be able to achieve with a 3D printer, but having some sort of fork that actually has a shock would be pretty good. Actual pedals. This bike has pegs, which I don't entirely know the purpose of. I don't know how you're supposed to really use your fingers with those. So adding pedals, I think could be the next upgrade. I don't even want to see them like connected through like a rubber band to the wheel. I just want to see some pedals on here. The last upgrade, which would be more of a concept, is to have different parts available to buy that you can swap around to basically make whatever bike you want. It would be sick to have a universal tire size for a finger bike and then have different frames and other parts able to just be mixed around. Maybe if this wheel size was the equivalent of 27.5 on a real bike, that would kind of make sense. Then you could have a dirt jumper size, which would be slightly smaller than this to mimic kind of a 26-inch wheel. These are a lot bigger ideas, but I think LC Boards could pretty easily become one of the best finger bike companies of all time. Another thing is having actual grip on the bars would actually be useful. It sounds odd because you don't think you would really need that just with your fingers. There's a lot of time filming this where I would do some sort of invert and one of my fingers would just kind of slip right off the bar. Having more grip on the bars would just make your fingers like stay on way better. I feel like it's kind of endless with this. There's so many little upgrades you could make to make this a lot better. It's definitely a little bit fragile, but it's overall pretty good. Unsure if you can buy replacement parts for this, but I think that could be a good step for them to take. Let me know your thoughts about this down below. I think it would be unreal to have precision parts like made for a finger bike. I put a link in the description if you want to check this thing out, and I will see you in my next video.